The massive screens at Earth's Global Space Command Center flickered to life at exactly midnight UTC. Every operator and scientist in the room froze as strange symbols danced across their monitors, forming patterns no human had ever seen before. Commander Robert Peters rubbed his tired eyes, wondering if the late shift had finally gotten to him. But the symbols remained, becoming clearer with each passing second. The system hadn't been hacked. This was a genuine transmission from deep space. "Get the director," he ordered, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "And someone wake up Captain Miller." James Miller had been sleeping when the call came. At 42, he was Earth's most experienced space diplomat, though he'd never actually met an alien. No one had. Humanity had spent centuries wondering if they were alone in the universe, sending out signals and hoping for responses. Now, on a regular Tuesday night, the answer had finally arrived. The transmission cleared up after 3 hours of processing. The beings called themselves the Luminari, and their message was simple. They wanted to meet. What caught everyone off guard wasn't the request itself, but rather the location they suggested. They were already waiting at the edge of Earth's solar system. "They've been watching us," Miller said, studying the translated message. "Probably for years." He stood in the command center, surrounded by the world's hastily assembled leaders who had gathered via emergency video conference. The luminary ship's images showed a vessel that defied human engineering understanding. It seemed to bend light around itself, shimmering like a mirage in the desert. But what truly captured everyone's attention was the figure in the transmission. Their leader, who introduced herself as Queen of the Luminari. She appeared humanoid but was clearly alien, with skin that seemed to glow from within and eyes that held an ancient wisdom. When she spoke, her words were translated by their advanced systems. "We come in peace, seeking dialogue with the species that has caught our attention for so long." The world's governments debated for exactly 6 hours before reaching a decision. They would send a delegation, and Captain Miller would lead it. The risks were enormous, but the potential benefits of peaceful first contact were too great to ignore. The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. Miller selected his crew carefully. Dr. Lisa Green, Earth's leading xenobiologist, Technical Officer Mark Thompson, the best engineer in the Space Force, and Communications Specialist Anna White, whose gift for languages and patterns made her invaluable. As they prepared to board humanity's most advanced ship, the Stellar Horizon, Miller addressed his small crew. "We're about to make history," he said, looking at each of them. "Everything we do from this point forward will be remembered for generations. Let's make sure they're good memories." The journey to the meeting point would take 5 days. As they traveled, more transmissions arrived from the luminary vessel. Each one revealed a little more about their visitors. They were an ancient species, far more advanced than humans, yet there was something almost familiar about their mannerisms. What puzzled Miller most was the Queen's particular interest in human culture. Her questions weren't about their technology or military capabilities, but about their arts, their families, their ways of solving problems. She seemed especially fascinated by humanity's ability to adapt and overcome challenges. On the 4th day of their journey, as the crew prepared for their approaching encounter, Miller stood at the ship's observation deck. The stars stretched out before him, and somewhere ahead waited an alien civilization that had chosen Earth for their first contact. "Captain," Anna's voice came over the intercom. "We're receiving another transmission from the luminary vessel. The Queen, she's requesting to speak with you personally." Miller straightened his uniform and took a deep breath. Whatever was waiting for them ahead, he knew humanity was about to step into a new era. What he couldn't know was that this conversation would be the first step toward a destiny neither species could have predicted. "Put her through," he said, ready to face whatever came next. The Stellar Horizon emerged from its final approach to see the luminary homeworld floating before them like a jewel in space. Unlike Earth's blue and green, this planet shimmered with patterns of purple and silver, its atmosphere seeming to dance with waves of light. Miller and his crew stood transfixed at the bridge's viewing window. Their escort ship, which had guided them from the solar system's edge, now led them toward what appeared to be a space station. Though station seemed too simple a word for the graceful structure that orbited the planet. "It looks like it's made of light itself," Dr. Green whispered, her scientific detachment momentarily forgotten as she stared at the structure. The station spiraled in impossible ways, its architecture defying human engineering principles. Their landing was smoother than any Earth docking procedure. The luminary's technology guided their ship with perfect precision, settling them into a bay that adjusted its very shape to accommodate the stellar horizon. "Remember," Miller addressed his team as they prepared to disembark, "we represent all of humanity now. Every step, every word matters." He straightened his dress uniform, a mix of excitement and nervousness running through him. The airlock cycled, and they stepped into their first alien environment. The air held a sweet, clean scent, and the gravity felt exactly like Earth's, clearly adjusted for their comfort. But what struck them most was the light. Every surface seemed to glow with a gentle radiance, creating an environment without shadows. Their escort, a tall luminary named Bright, led them through corridors that seemed to shift and flow around them. Other luminary they passed stopped to watch, their bodies pulsing with subtle lights that Miller guessed might be their form of communication. The throne room, when they reached it, took their breath away. It wasn't just a room. It was like standing inside an aurora borealis. Waves of color danced through the air, and the ceiling appeared to open directly into space, showing stars and nebulae that were impossible to see from this position. Queen Aurora's entrance changed everything. Unlike the transmissions, in person she radiated power and presence that made everyone, human and luminary alike, stand straighter. Her form shifted between solid and light, her crown appearing to be made of captured starfire. "Captain Miller," she spoke, her voice carrying perfectly despite the vast chamber. "We have waited so long for this moment." She descended from her throne, moving with fluid grace. The formal greetings proceeded according to protocol, but Miller noticed something odd. The Queen's advisors kept exchanging looks, their bodies flickering with patterns that seemed urgent. And the Queen herself couldn't seem to take her eyes off the human delegation. During the ceremonial feast that followed, things got stranger. The Queen asked Miller to sit beside her, an honor that clearly surprised the luminary court. The food, synthesized to be safe for human consumption, tasted like nothing they'd ever experienced. "Your species fascinates us," the Queen said to Miller as they dined. "You achieve so much with so little. You face impossible odds and somehow prevail. It's remarkable." There was something in her voice, an emotion Miller couldn't quite identify. Dr. Green, seated nearby, was busy scanning everything with her specialized equipment. "Captain," she whispered during a lull, "their biology, it's incredible. They're not just bioluminescent, they're literally beings of light and matter combined." As the evening progressed, Miller noticed the Queen's chief advisor, Stern, watching them with increasing intensity. The advisor's light patterns seemed agitated, almost urgent. Several times he approached the Queen, only to be waved away. The reception ended with an announcement that shocked the human delegation. They were invited to stay for an extended diplomatic mission. The Queen's request was both an honor and a surprise. Such early trust was unexpected in first contact situations. As Miller lay in his assigned quarters that night, watching the strange constellations through his window, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was much more to this invitation than simple diplomacy. The Queen's interest, the advisor's behavior, the rushed timeline. Something bigger was happening here. He just had no idea how big it would turn out to be. The morning after the reception, Miller found himself wandering the vast corridors of the Luminary Palace. The architecture continued to amaze him. Walls that seemed solid one moment would become translucent the next, allowing glimpses of the spectacular alien city below. His peaceful exploration was interrupted when Stern, the Queen's chief advisor, suddenly appeared before him. The elderly luminary's light patterns were pulsing rapidly, showing what Miller had learned to recognize as agitation. "Captain Miller," Stern spoke in a hushed tone, glancing around to ensure they were alone. "There is something you must know, something that explains why you are really here." Before Miller could respond, Stern led him through a series of corridors that grew progressively older in appearance. The modern, flowing architecture gave way to more angular, ancient designs. The light here seemed older somehow, more permanent. They entered a chamber that felt ancient. Unlike the rest of the palace, this room was carved from actual stone, its walls covered in intricate patterns that glowed with their own inner light. At the center stood a crystalline pedestal, housing what appeared to be an ancient book. "This," Stern said, his voice filled with reverence, "is the prophecy of the Star-Bearers. It was written 10,000 years ago by our greatest seer." The book opened at Stern's touch, its pages made of some sort of living crystal that shifted and moved. The text, written in flowing luminary script, began to translate itself before Miller's eyes. "When the stars grow dim and hope fades like morning mist," Stern read aloud, "they will come, born of a younger world, carrying within them the spark of creation itself. Their bodies, simple yet perfect, hold the key to our salvation." Miller's breath caught as he saw the images forming in the crystal pages, crude but recognizable drawings of human beings. "There's more," Stern continued. "The prophecy speaks of a great joining between our peoples, led by a warrior of wisdom from the younger race, and our own starborn queen." The advisor's light patterns shifted to what Miller had learned meant deadly seriousness. "Captain, our civilization is far older than yours. We have achieved things your people would consider miraculous. But we are dying. Our star system is failing, and with it, our very essence fades." Miller remembered the Queen's strange behavior, her intense interest in humans. "The prophecy," he said slowly, "you believe it's about us." "About me?" Stern nodded, his form flickering with emotion. "When our long-range scouts first discovered Earth, we were amazed. Your species matched every detail in the prophecy. But it was more than that. Your genetic structure, it's unlike anything we've ever seen." The advisor touched the crystal book again, and new images formed. DNA strands that Miller recognized as human, but with something else highlighted within them, something that seemed to pulse with the same energy that powered luminary technology. "We've been watching your people for centuries," Stern admitted, "waiting until you developed enough to understand what we would ask of you. The Queen, she believes the time has finally come." A sound at the chamber's entrance made them both turn. Queen Aurora stood there, her form radiating both power and uncertainty, and strange combination for such a mighty being. "I had hoped to reveal this more gradually," she said, entering the chamber. Her light patterns showed complex emotions Miller couldn't fully interpret. "But perhaps Stern is right. Time grows short, and we can no longer afford the luxury of slow diplomacy." She moved to stand before Miller, her form seeming to both solidify and glow more intensely. "Captain, what you've learned is only the beginning. The prophecy speaks of a solution to our dying stars, but it requires something we cannot achieve alone." Miller looked between the ancient book, the anxious advisor, and the powerful Queen. In that moment, he understood that his mission had just become far more complex than a simple diplomatic exchange. "Tell me everything," he said, straightening his shoulders. "If there's a way humanity can help, we need to know." The Queen's form brightened with what might have been hope. "Then let us begin," she said, "with the truth about your species, and why you are far more remarkable than you know." In the grand observatory of the Luminary Palace, Miller stood with Queen Aurora and his science team, watching a holographic display of their star system. The image was beautiful but troubling. 5 stars connected by streams of energy, all showing signs of instability. "Our civilization is built on the energy we draw from these stars," the Queen explained, her form dimming slightly as she spoke. "For millions of years, we maintained perfect balance. But now," she gestured, and the hologram showed dark spots spreading through the star system like a disease. Dr. Green stepped closer to the display, her scientific curiosity overcoming her awe. These energy patterns, they're unlike anything we've seen before. The stars appear to be losing their cohesion at the quantum level. Precisely, said Stern, who stood nearby. Our entire species exists in harmony with these stars. As they fade, so do we. His usual bright glow had dulled to a worried flicker. Technical Officer Thompson spoke up, with respect. Your technology is far beyond ours. How could we possibly help with something you can't solve? The Queen's response was to wave her hand, creating a new hologram, this one showing the human DNA strand. Because you carry something we lost long ago, something we engineered out of ourselves in our quest for advancement. Miller watched as the hologram zoomed in on a specific section of the DNA. It glowed with an energy pattern that perfectly matched the healthy parts of the luminary stars. Early in our evolution, the Queen continued, our ancestors chose to modify themselves, becoming beings of pure energy and light. We gained incredible powers, but lost something fundamental, the ability to create new energy patterns. Dr. Green's eyes widened. You're saying humans still have this ability? That we naturally generate the same energy your stars are losing? Yes, the Queen's form brightened with excitement. Your bodies constantly create and renew these energy patterns. It's part of what makes you so resilient, so adaptable. We believe you could help us restore our stars. Miller frowned. How? We can't exactly transfer this energy from us to your stars. No, Stern agreed, but we can use your pattern as a template to recreate the lost frequencies. However, the process requires direct human involvement. Our technology must be guided by beings who naturally understand these energy patterns. The Queen moved closer to Miller, her light patterns showing both hope and concern. We need humans to help operate our star stabilization systems. But more than that, we need your species' intuitive understanding of energy creation. Without it, any solution we attempt will eventually fail. Thompson studied the technical readouts scrolling beside the hologram. The math is sound, he said with surprise. Their theories about human energy patterns match perfectly with the star degradation data. Suddenly, alarms blared through the observatory. The holographic display flashed red as one of the 5 stars showed signs of imminent collapse. It's happening faster than we predicted. Stern's voice was thick with worry. If that star goes, it will trigger a cascade failure through our entire system. The Queen's form flickered with distress. We have less than 1 Earth month before the collapse becomes irreversible. Millions will die if we cannot stop it. Miller looked at his team, then back at the dying star system. The weight of the situation pressed down on him. This wasn't just about diplomacy anymore. An entire civilization's survival hung in the balance. What exactly do you need from us? He asked, his voice firm with determination. The Queen's response was both simple and overwhelming. We need humans to join with our stellar engineers, to work directly with our most advanced systems, to teach us again how to create the energy we've lost. She paused, her next words heavy with meaning. And we need you, Captain Miller, to help lead this effort. As the alarms continued to sound and the holographic stars flickered ominously, Miller realized they had run out of time for careful deliberation. They needed to act, and act soon, or watch an ancient civilization fade into stardust. Show us what to do, he said. We'll help however we can. Deep within the luminary's main science facility, Miller watched as Dr. Green carefully extracted a sample of his blood. The laboratory around them hummed with energy, luminary technology seamlessly blending with hastily installed human equipment. Ready for the first trial, Dr. Green announced, placing the sample into a crystal-like device that the luminary called a resonance chamber. The machine began to glow, creating patterns that danced through the air. 3 luminary scientists, their forms pulsing with concentrated focus, stood at different points around the chamber. Leading them was Bright, now revealed to be one of their foremost experts in bioenergy conversion. Beginning quantum resonance scan, Bright announced, his light patterns shifting rapidly as he worked the controls. The chamber's glow intensified, and Miller's blood sample began to shimmer with an inner light of its own. The holographic displays erupted with data, showing energy patterns that flowed through the human DNA structure. The luminary scientists' light patterns flickered with excitement as they recorded the results. "It's remarkable," Bright exclaimed. "The energy signature is even stronger than we theorized. Captain, your cellular structure naturally produces the exact frequency our stars are losing." Dr. Green studied the readings with intense concentration. "The process seems to be linked to our mitochondrial functions. But there's something else, something in our very atomic structure that resonates with your stellar energy." The next test involved exposing the sample to different types of luminary stellar energy. Each time, the human cells responded by producing complementary energy patterns, adapting and stabilizing the alien frequencies. "This is why your species survives so well in space," Bright explained, his form glowing brighter with enthusiasm. "Your bodies don't just resist cosmic radiation. They absorb and transform it." Miller watched as they ran test after test, each one confirming the luminaries' theories. "But how do we scale this up?" he asked. "We can't exactly feed the stars with blood samples." Queen Aurora, who had been silently observing from the background, stepped forward. "We don't need to," she said. "What we need is the living presence of humans to guide our stellar engineering systems. Your natural energy patterns will serve as a template for the restoration process." Thompson, who had been studying the luminary's stellar engineering blueprints, looked up. "You're talking about using humans as living catalysts," he said. "We would essentially become part of the stellar maintenance system." "Yes," the Queen confirmed. "But it must be voluntary, and it carries risks. The energy involved is enormous. We've never attempted anything like this before." Miller stepped forward. "Test it on me first," he said firmly. "If we're asking others to take this risk, I need to understand exactly what we're dealing with." The Queen's light patterns showed concern, but she nodded. The laboratory transformed around them as new equipment emerged from the walls. A chamber, similar to the smaller testing unit but sized for a human, formed in the center of the room. "This will connect you directly to a small portion of our stellar network," Bright explained as Miller prepared to enter. "We'll start with minimal power, but you should be able to feel the star's energy." Miller took a deep breath and stepped inside. The chamber sealed around him, and suddenly he felt it, the vast, ancient power of the luminary stars flowing through him. It wasn't painful, but the sensation was overwhelming, like being connected to something impossibly vast and alive. The observers watched in amazement as Miller's body began to glow with the same light as the luminary, his natural energy patterns amplifying and stabilizing the stellar frequencies flowing through the chamber. "It's working," Bright announced, his voice filled with joy. "The human energy pattern is actually strengthening the stellar frequencies. With enough human participants, we could actually do this." Miller emerged from the chamber, slightly shaky but exhilarated. "How many people would we need?" he asked. The Queen's response was both hopeful and cautious. 1,000 to start. But first, we need to be certain this process is safe for extended periods. Captain, what you just did was remarkable, but it was only the beginning." Around them, the laboratory hummed with new possibilities, as human and luminary science came together to save a dying star system. The Grand Council chamber of the Luminary Palace was filled with tension. Representatives from Earth's governments had arrived via emergency transport after hearing the initial test results. They sat alongside luminary officials, their contrasting forms, solid human and luminescent alien, creating a striking scene. Miller stood at the center of the chamber, having just finished presenting the test data. His voice was steady despite the weight of what he was about to propose. "The evidence is clear. Human energy signatures can stabilize the luminary star system. But what we need now goes beyond simple cooperation." Queen Aurora rose from her throne, her form brighter than usual. She moved to stand beside Miller, an action that caused murmurs among both humans and luminary. "What Captain Miller is trying to say," she announced, "is that we need more than just volunteers. We need a permanent union between our peoples." The chamber erupted in discussion. Earth's representatives leaned forward, their expressions a mix of concern and interest. The Luminary Council members' light patterns flickered rapidly in their version of intense debate. "Our civilizations must merge," the Queen continued, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Not just in technology or resources, but in governance. The star stabilization process requires constant human presence, constant coordination between our peoples." Miller activated a holographic display showing the proposed integration plan. "The Luminary stellar engineering systems need human guidance to function properly, but humans need luminary expertise to safely channel these energies. Neither species can do this alone." Dr. Green stepped forward, adding her scientific authority to the presentation. "The energy bonds we've discovered aren't temporary. Once established, they create permanent links between human biology and luminary stellar technology. We're talking about a genuine symbiosis between our species." The Earth representatives exchanged worried glances. "You're suggesting we permanently relocate thousands of humans to the luminary system?" one asked. "The political implications alone." "We're suggesting more than that," the Queen interrupted. She turned to Miller, her light patterns showing a complex mix of emotions. "Captain Miller, you've proven yourself not just as a diplomat, but as someone who truly understands both our peoples. The prophecies spoke of a leader from a younger race who would help guide us into a new era." The chamber grew silent as the Queen's meaning became clear. Miller felt all eyes on him as she continued. "I am proposing a joint leadership," she said. "Myself and Captain Miller, working together to guide both our peoples through this transition. A symbolic and practical union that will show both species we are truly committed to this merger." The silence that followed was deafening. Miller looked around the chamber, seeing the shock on human faces and the rapid light patterns of the Luminary Council members. He hadn't expected this, though perhaps he should have seen it coming. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "you're suggesting I become my equal partner in ruling the luminary system," she finished, "and in overseeing the integration of our peoples. The star stabilization project needs both human and luminary leadership to succeed. We need someone who can represent humanity's interests while understanding our ways." The Earth representatives burst into urgent discussions. The Luminary Council members' light patterns became a storm of colors. But Miller stood still, his mind racing with the implications. He thought about the dying stars, about the millions of lives at stake. He thought about the incredible potential of their two species working together, about the future they could build. The Queen's form dimmed slightly with vulnerability, a sight few had ever seen. "I know it's an enormous request," she said quietly, "but our future depends on this union working. We need someone who can bridge our worlds, who can help us become something greater than either of us are alone." Miller looked at his team, at the Earth representatives, at the Luminary Council. He saw fear, hope, doubt, and possibility in their faces and light patterns. Whatever he decided next would change the course of both civilizations forever. The choice was his, and the stars waited for his answer. The day of the announcement dawned with both Earth's sun and the luminary stars shining in their respective skies. Billions of beings across two civilizations waited anxiously for the broadcast that would change everything. In the grand ceremonial chamber of the Luminary Palace, Miller stood before a mirror, adjusting the unique garment crafted for this occasion. It combined his Earth military dress uniform with luminary light threads that pulsed in harmony with his heartbeat. Dr. Green had helped design it to symbolize the merging of their cultures. "Are you ready?" Thompson asked, checking the communication systems one final time. The ceremony would be broadcast simultaneously to Earth and throughout the luminary system. Miller nodded, his expression calm despite the magnitude of what was about to happen. "Ready as I'll ever be to help rule an alien civilization." The ceremony began with a procession of both human and luminary dignitaries. The chamber, already magnificent, had been transformed into a space that celebrated both cultures. Earth plants grew alongside luminary-like sculptures, their natural beauty complementing each other perfectly. Queen Aurora entered, her form radiant with joy and purpose. She wore a crown that incorporated both crystalline luminary technology and earth metals, symbolizing the union they were about to forge. Today, she began, her voice carrying to all watching. We stand at the beginning of a new era. Our peoples, separated by vast distances of space but united by destiny, joined together not just in alliance, but in true partnership. Miller stepped forward, and together they activated the ceremonial stellar interface. Above them, a holographic display showed the 5 luminary stars, their energy patterns already stabilizing thanks to the human volunteers who had begun working with the stellar engineering systems. I accept the responsibility and honor of this position, Miller announced, his voice strong and clear. Not just as a representative of Earth, but as someone who believes in the potential of our united future. The Queen turned to him, her light patterns showing pure joy. Then, before all our peoples, I declare you my equal partner in governing the luminary system. Let this union mark the beginning of our new shared civilization. As she spoke these words, the chamber erupted in light. The luminary present began to glow brighter, their light patterns synchronizing in celebration. The human attendees found themselves surrounded by gentle auroras of color, a physical manifestation of the connection between their species. "It's yours, human," the Queen exclaimed, taking Miller's hand. "Our realm, our future, our destiny. It belongs to both our peoples now." The stellar interface responded to their touch, showing the first successful large-scale stabilization of one of the failing stars. The combined human luminary engineering teams had already begun their work, and the results were better than anyone had hoped. Dr. Green's readings showed something remarkable. The energy patterns of both species were beginning to harmonize naturally, creating new frequencies that strengthened both the stars and the people themselves. As the ceremony concluded, Miller addressed both civilizations. "We face challenges ahead. Merging our peoples won't be easy, but together, we have something unprecedented. The wisdom of an ancient civilization combined with the adaptability and energy of a younger one. We will not just survive, we will thrive." The response was overwhelming. From Earth came reports of celebrations in every major city. Throughout the luminary system, their people's light patterns created spectacular displays of joy that could be seen from space. Later, in a quiet moment away from the celebrations, Miller stood with the Queen in the observatory, watching their people begin their work together. "You know," he said, "when I took this diplomatic mission, I never imagined it would end with me helping to rule an alien civilization." The Queen's light patterns showed amusement. "And I never imagined sharing my throne with a being from a younger world. But the prophecy was right. We needed each other, not just to save our stars, but to become something greater than either of us could be alone." Below them, human scientists worked alongside luminary engineers, their combined efforts already showing promising results. The stars above shone brighter, stabilized by the unique energy pattern of their united peoples. A new chapter had begun, not just for 2 civilizations, but for the entire galaxy that would watch and learn from their historic union.